G'day YouTube, my name's Lance and welcome to Bundy Bear's Shed. Well, as part of our 2030 video series on splitting my 2030 and fixing it, jumping out of reverse and fixing the PDO brake band problem that we have, we're at the split where we're right at the high-low, and we have the PDO clutch there, we have the high-low basket there, which we're going to pull apart. Mine's working fine, but we're going to run through it just to have a look. We're there, so yeah, perhaps pop a few plates in or a few rings in. But the purpose of this video is we're going to run through what to do with this little oil manifold. Now, these little oil manifolds, I don't know what they're worth from John Deere, but they're a bloody lot. And most times you can repair them. They've got to be really crook not to be repairable. I have seen one break once, but that's once in like 30 years or 40 years doing John Deere stuff. So it's not a common thing that happens with them. And this pump here, this is your this is your transmission pump. It's your low pressure pump, and it bolts onto the housing that holds your high-low and all in place. So oil from this pump comes in the big pipe, out the smaller pipe here, and goes off to your transmission filter, comes back and goes up into your shift cover where you lift your PDO lever, where your high-low control is. And that's the cover where your two gear sticks are. That's your shift cover. And after the shift cover's decided it's got enough oil, it brings oil back down the two holes here. You can see there's a hole there and a hole there, and that puts oil to your your high-low. I'm sorry, your high-low clutch pack and your baskets and that. So the idea of this shaft here, because this is a fixed item, and your high-low, if you remember the high-low, it pushes in and it's on the clutch plate, you know, your single clutch plate. Then the outer of the basket, it's hooked to the spline in your clutch cover. And so what you're doing, you're transferring oil. The main job of this is to transfer oil from a fixed assembly to a rotating assembly. So because the high-low rotates, it needs to, by the very nature of it, they need to get the oil in there from this fixed housing. So the oil comes in through these pipes here, and it works its way through these ports up into the high-low basket. So its main job, like I say, is just to take oil from a fixed assembly to a rotating assembly with as little leakage as possible. So we'll just zoom in on the bench. I'll get me dial out of the picture. You don't need to look at that. And I'll run through a few things, a few homemade tools you can make to service this up. So hang on, I'll shift the camera and we'll be back. Okay, to do this job, before we get started, there's a couple of homemade tools you can make, and there's a couple of little things to get you started. So in this manifold here, now there's a hollow tube here, and it has a pipe goes up inside and joins up with this section here. Then there's another one here. The oil comes in here and comes out there. So to try and show you, if I can line up this top hole, I'd like you to look up there, and where are we? There's a hole for it. Now if I poke a welding rod up its bum in the middle there, you'll see it come up. So oil comes from this journal here and comes out the end there. Then oil comes in this journal here, which is sealed. This one's sealed off between two sealing rings here. I've taken one off for a play. Then this one, it's sealed off between these two sealing rings there, and it comes out between these two sealing rings. So you can block this up, as in put a bolt up it or something like that later. They don't have a thread normally, but you can air test it. So you can sharpen up a couple of sticks and poke in here to block the air here, you can push air up there with an air nozzle and put this in a bit of water and see if you have any leakage coming out. Then if that internal pipe is leaking, you'll get bubbles coming out of either of these two. So that's how you test the inside pipe. But look, before you get started, there's a couple of things I'd like you to do. Now, one of them is down the end of this tube here, you have a little ring, and if they've never been mucked around with before, there'll be no thread there at all. So what you will need to do is get a 3/8 UNC. This is what I use anyway. A 3/8 UNC tap, and you need to tap a thread into the end here. So with the I'll just shift this camera. I'm either halfway in or halfway out. So with the thread here, that gives us a means of pulling this out of the centre there. So when you put the thread in, you only want to go down around 1/2 inch deep. Now, I'll just show you how far I've gone with mine. So I'll just turn this down with my fingers. Actually, I will use my old snap-on 9/16 here. And that's about the limit of it. So if I bring this nut down here, then back this out, that'll give you an indication of how far I've gone here. Now, someone's been in here before and the thread was already in this one. I did run a tap down just to make sure the thread was clear. But when you have a look, that's how much thread. And when we get our verniers out, just for a quick squeeze, that's around 11 millimetres or 7/16 deep. It's a 3/8 UNC bolt. It shouldn't be that hard to work with. Now, this bolt here, it's a 3/8 UNC bolt, and it just started off like this one, and I run the thread all the way down. Now, for my purposes, this is 2.5 inch, so it's a 2.5 inch UNC bolt. I chose a grade 8 one, which is a bugger to run the thread down. It was hard, but anyway, hey, you do what you bloody like. And another thing you need is a Cat 2 to 3 linkage bush, which any old tractor shop's got them. You may have them around. They're $5, or they're not much money, these things. And this one is 1 inch inside diameter, 1.25 inches outside diameter, and 2 inches long. Now, all that we need to do is have something to sit over here. So if you're going to make your own, you've got a lathe at home and you make your own, well, and you want to get ready for your split, that's, what are we looking at? Say 24 mil, or if you went 950 thou, you'd have a little bit of gap there. And what we're doing, we're just using this as a sleeve to sit over the top and draw that plug out the bottom there. So we draw this little fellow out. He has a sealing ring on him, and if you need to replace that sealing ring there, you need to do this job. So the idea is to have a sleeve that sits down against the spline there. Like I say, I'm using a Cat 2 to 3 bush, 1 inch, 1.25 inch, and I just found a washer, a nice thick washer that sat on the top, and the hole's too big obviously for a 9/16. So I found a washer to go on there, and mine just happens to be square. Round's good. Look, that's just nothing, not important, any of that. And so what the story is with this is we bring this, we set the tube down over there, we put our washers on the top. Now, a little bit of oil on the threads is a good thing, and we run the bolt, sorry, run the nut. Don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm bloody talking about. Run the nut way up out of the road there like that. So it's just sitting like that. Then bring that down. Find the thread. And screwing that in finger tight's fine. With a thread, the maximum strength of most threads is 1.5, well it's just a rule of thumb really, 1.5 times the diameter of the bolt. So 1.5 times 3/8 or 10 mil. That's the maximum strength, but we won't need that on here. So what I'd like to do is we have a bit of oil on the thread and on everything. So if we run this down, you may notice I've also got this in soft jaws. And look, they're just bits of aluminium angle iron that I've bashed around just to give me a soft jaw. So what we'd like to do now is we don't really, I'll find my other 9/16 spanner here. That's easier said than done, isn't it? There it is. Stop looking, I got it. And the reason we want to hold this and screw that is because we don't want this bolt going down so far that it goes into the pipe inside. So you're probably wondering about this bit of pipe, but look, if I try and keep one hand out of the way. So all we're looking to do is tighten down on the nut here. And there we go. So there's the pipe, and you can see it looks like this one might be brazed up there. I'm not sure about that yet, but we pull that out and you can see this tube here. I think that with the heat there, I think that has been silver soldered on this end. But you can also see on the other end here, you can see how deep it was in. And look, it looks like it was, let's have a look here. Looks like it was about 170 thou or 4.5 mil down in the bottom end there. And this is your sealing ring. So if you need to put a new sealing ring on here, you actually need to do this job to get this out to do that. Now, this here, it's sort of been, oh, there's a couple of little marks there. Nothing really worth worrying about. You can see where someone's grabbed it in a vise just there. But that's the main gist of this job. Now, the sealing rings here, if you're in here, put sealing rings on anyway. I'll bring you back over this way a little bit onto the bench. Now, the sealing rings, where they sit into the housings, I'll just take one off here. And I don't know what I did with the other worn one. But if I bring this down this way, to tell how much wear you have, you can hook the hooks up on the ring here and poke that in the hole here. And look, ideal is, I like to work on 1 to 3 thou, but this one's been working really well. That's probably about 12, 15 thou there. And when we put a brand new hook ring in, and where I'm putting it is there's a slight indent there where the old rings run. So I'm trying to find that worn spot to see if we need to machine this bush out and put a new one in. Now if you need to machine this bush out there where the rings sit and get another one put in, nothing wrong with that. That's a fine fix. That saves you buying a whole housing. So yeah, look, this one, oh look, it's 10th hour I suppose. What you're looking for is where you have the hook in the ring in the end there, you can just see that. You want to make sure those hooks aren't touching. It's got to be compressed. It's got to be sitting in. And if it's not compressed, it'll just float round around in this housing and just wear everything out. The other thing we need to look for is on the side of this ring, you can see a shiny bit and a dark bit. That's wear on the side of the ring. They do wear on the sides. So you'll also see on here, there's a little bit of a lip, a little bit of a shoulder just inside this ring groove. So what that tells us is that there's a little bit of side movement up and down, sideways. So just for the exercise, we'll put this old ring on there. And you can see that there. So that's a combination. I might zoom you in there a little bit. So that's a combination of ring wear and shoulder wear. Now, if we put a new one in, and the number of this ring, you can only buy these genuine as far as I'm aware. The number of the big ring is, it is R26753. The number of the small rings, of which is 3, is R39283. And the number of the ring on the end is R34140. And you can only go to John Deere for those, well, as far as I know. But we'll pop this in. And we still have a little bit of movement there. You can and that's with the ring out. When you pull the ring in, you'll see where it would have been originally. There's no movement there at all, probably half a thou or something like the side movement. But look, mine's been working fine. I'm going to leave it at that, but I've come across these tractors over time that this shoulder here is, where's my focus gone? There we go. This shoulder here is worn right out, or you know, there's a heap of slop there. And so with that, there's nothing wrong with MIG welding that up. Try not to get a heap of heat into it, but you can MIG weld it up, and you can use a high-speed steel tool that you grind to the same width as a sealing ring, and you can weld these up. Try not to get a heap of heat in, but look, I've done it. I've had many tractors keep going like that. So yeah, we'll just see how it goes. If you need to do it, do it. Don't be shy, but just like run around a little bit, then cool it down. Then run around the next one, cool it down. Don't just weld everything up and work like that. So I think my hand just buggers up that focus all the time. But anyway, look, so what we're going to do with ours, I'm happy with these ring grooves on mine. There's a little bit of wear there, but look, I'm going with it. The reason I'm going with it is everything's working fine, and with new sealing rings, we're picking up another point again. So we're losing the wear factor out of the whole thing. So we'll zoom back out again a little bit. And so with this, I've got an offset vise, so we just sit this in here like that. Now, we've got a new ring to put onto here, so we keep this as clean as we possibly can. We find this other ring, we put the ring on, and we bring this back down. Now, I like to Loctite this in, and it's just a little bit of extra sealing, and with the little bit extra sealing, I've never silver soldered this one in. Normally it's both ways, from what I can recall, but it's probably not a bad idea if you feel like doing that. But yeah, we'll put a bit of Loctite 680 or something around there, and we bring this down in here, and I'll go over to the press, and you press it down, but you make sure you still have some side movement. So if you go a little bit far and you nip this up a little bit and it's too tight, get your puller out again and just bring it just back out that little bit. So look, I'll go and fit that. I probably don't need to video that part, and I'll come back. Well, look, I was just over getting this all ready to press on and press down in, and it occurred to me that in the past, out in the paddock, I've had to do these jobs out in the paddock, and you know, people are in a rush to get going again, and you can whiz out there and you know, do little things to help out. But what I did out in the paddock, and this may be of interest to you, it's probably a rougher way to go with it, but I'd probably like to show you, is what you can do here is put the bolt back in, and after Loctiting it in, you can bump this back in. Make sure you hold the ring up against the top bit. And you can hear that's just gone a bit hard. That's where it used to sit, obviously. And that's done. So with a tad of Loctite in there, that's never going to move out in a fit. So look, it's just another way of doing the job. There's bloody 20 ways to skin a rabbit, and my way's just one way of doing it. Yeah, so keep that in mind when you're putting it together. We'll have a bit of a look now, and we'll sort of run through testing. Okay, with our manifold here, we've pressed it back together again. I've put a bit of Loctite retaining compound type stuff on the pipe so it doesn't leak, and it wants to stay there. And I've assembled it all. The rings are nice and free. I've put new rings in every groove. Now, at this end, now this isn't as this tool here doesn't have a John Deere part number, which I know you'd be disappointed about, but look, it's a couple of bits of Australian gum. So I went outside, and just to prove that you can make it out of anything, I went outside and I found a couple of gum twigs. I put a taper on them, so it's a long taper so they fit in the hole here. Now, if you haven't got Australian gum, I think you need to jump in a plane and come out to Australia for a holiday and spend a few bucks. But look, in reality, without all the bullshit, make them out of anything you like. A bit of pine dowel, a bit of whatever you like. And you want to push them in nice and tight. We'll give that a bit of a see how we go with that. And the idea of this test, I've nicked the dog's bowl. Old Kelly dog said I could have it for a little while, as long as I put fresh water in when I'm finished. So what we're going to do, we're going to put air up here, and we've got these two holes blocked, which was where where normally the oil would, you know, transfer up through this pipe. And if we see any bubbles coming out of in here, either of these two, we know it hasn't sealed properly. So if we put him in there, turn him around, let him, make sure there's no air in there, and I'll try and get this all set up and around the camera too. So down the bottom end here, I'm just holding these pieces of wood in here with my fingers. I want this top hole good, so Getting the right angle of the dangle is going to be a problem. And see, I've got around 100 pound of air pressure there, and you can see out of those 2 middle holes there's no water, no bubbles, I'm sorry, no bubbles coming out at all. So we know now that we can take this shaft and use it. There's not going to be a problem. We're not going to have a problem with air leakage or oil leakage from one end to the other. But what we need to do now, because of that water, we need to give it a really good wash, give it a blow dry and oil it all up, wrap it in a rag for when we're ready to pop him back in. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight into just this one part. You wouldn't think there'd be so much on, you wouldn't think you'd get a video out of just a little part like this. But anyway, that's what we've done. Hopefully it helps. As with everything in my videos, it's about encouraging you to have a go yourself. So there you go. Let's move on to something else.